Let's rewind to 2013. Adobe had just made a bold move. They decided to ditch the old school model of buying software once and owning it forever. Instead, they introduced something fresh, a monthly subscription they called the Creative Cloud. Behind the scenes, they weren't just changing how people paid, they were launching what they believed was an unbreakable system. Layers of security, brand new checks, anti-piracy firewalls, the whole works. The goal? End software piracy forever. But the internet had other plans. Barely 2 days after launch, pirated versions of Adobe apps were already bouncing around forums and file-sharing sites. All the high-end security and heavy spending useless. A silent wave of hackers had slipped right through it. So how did they pull it off? Well, you need to think like a lockpicker. Imagine you have a bike with a lock. The lock is strong, but what if someone has a copy of the key? In software, that key is usually a license code or a digital certificate. Back in the day, buying software was basically buying that key. Enter the code and boom, you were in. But over time, companies figured out this was too easy to fake. Fast forward to the early 2000s, tech giants like Adobe started rolling out hardcore protection systems. Things like DiskGuard and CryptShield, not their real names but close. These were like digital vaults. One made sure your disk couldn't even be read without permission. The other wrapped your software in layer after layer of encryption. They sounded impressive, but hackers, they cracked both within a week. So the companies added another twist: hardware keys. Small USB sticks you had to plug in to run the program. If the stick wasn't there, the software refused to open. But again, the hackers adapted. They fooled the system into thinking the USB was always there, even if it wasn't. It was a game of cat and mouse, and the hackers were always one move ahead. Then came a more advanced shield, DRM, Digital Rights Management. This wasn't just a lock, it was more like a watchdog. Imagine using an app, and it's constantly checking that you're who you say you are. Every few minutes, it phones home to check if your account is still active and if your device is still trusted. That's exactly how modern Adobe tools like Illustrator and Premiere work. When you launch them, they don't just load up, they scan your system. Things like your CPU, installed RAM, motherboard ID, all of it gets bundled into a unique fingerprint for your machine. That fingerprint gets sent to Adobe's servers, and only if the server gives the green light will the software start. Sounds airtight, right? Not quite. There's this tool, let's call it CodePeek, again, not its real name, that allows hackers to pause software mid-process. When Photoshop, for example, is checking your license, the hacker freezes the app. In that frozen moment, they can peek inside and view every line of code, every key being checked, and every outcome expected. And here's where the magic happens. They tweak the software to skip the check entirely, or better yet, to always say, yep, everything looks good. But some hackers didn't stop there. They actually set up fake servers that mimic Adobe's own. So when the software sends a message asking, is this user valid? It gets a response from the fake server saying, all good here. Meanwhile, Adobe's real servers are never even contacted. Still, Adobe kept pushing back. They started moving major features to the cloud. For example, let's say you're editing a photo using a new tool like Smart Adjust, like neural filters. Your computer sends the photo to Adobe's server. Adobe does the heavy lifting there, then sends the result back. This means none of that magic happens locally, so it's nearly impossible to crack. And here's something not everyone realizes. Behind most cracked software isn't some guy in a hoodie in a dark basement. It's often organized teams, groups like Shadowbyte, Null Crew, or Patch Haven. These aren't amateurs. One member studies the protection, another writes the actual patch, a third tests it across different machines. It's coordinated, almost like a startup, with rules. Yep, some of these teams actually have ethics. They won't touch banking software. They steer clear of health systems. For many of them, it's not about free stuff, it's about proving a point. Nothing is unbreakable. So next time you hear someone casually say they got the pro version for free, just know there's an entire digital war happening behind that cracked icon on their desktop. And if you're curious about more stories like this, well, you know what to do. Hit that like, maybe subscribe, and stick around for more tech videos and tutorials. Bye bye.